Is this guy serious with that background? Writing, where is it, what is it, and what does it want with our souls? Well, me, alongside my teammates Haley and Arata, were tasked to find the definition of writing. We're very qualified. But there's something the teacher doesn't know. The internet. All we have to do is look up the definition of writing on the World Wide Web, and all the secrets will be ours. Let's see what good old Cambridge came up with. They're British. Alright. Writing, a person's style of forming letters and words with a pen or pencil or something written. Writing is also articles, poems, books, etc. Writing is also the activity of creating stories, poems, or articles. Okay. Kind of seemed like they said the same thing twice, and well, you know, it's just one source. Let's go with classic. Let's just go with dictionary.com. Alright, so first thing, writing. The act of a person or thing that writes. What we're getting at here is there is no formal definition of writing, at least nothing we could find. We are the sole people who can bring it to you. Firstly, I gotta point out this is all opinion, this is just how we feel about it, so then if you disagree, you can leave! We saw defining writing as one of two possibilities. One, you could go really specific and really lock onto one simple thing, which is the route we went with, or you could go super broad and have writing be a myriad of things, if I can use an SAT word. There are pros and cons to each. For a very specific definition, people will always be able to bring examples that'll have you question yourself and your beliefs. And if you go super broad and you include all these things like art and written words spoken, it starts to get to a point eventually where it's like, well, what are we even talking about here anymore? We've included like every form of communication. We'll come back to that a little later, but right now we want to present our claim as to what writing is. After hours and hours of bone-crunching work, we have found that writing, in our definition, is a series of letters and or words that are put together in a coherent manner and contain some sort of meaning. So yes, we very much simplified the definition. It needs to be words, and you need to use your eyes to read them. No, you don't need any other senses. Now I can see all you people raising an eyebrow. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about things that for us were kind of right on the line, which now thinking about it might hurt our argument a little bit. A big factor of why we need to redefine writing is the technological revolution that's happened over the last 20 years. It would be idiotic to assume that the writing process hadn't really been affected by the technological boom. I think Dennis Barron, a wonderful author, I think Dennis Barron summed it up really well when he said, I found I had become so used to composing digitally at a keyboard, I could no longer draft anything coherently directly onto a piece of paper. That's just a tiny example of how technology has rooted itself in our lives in such subtle ways. And yes, it is terrifying to think about. Now obviously the idea of texting isn't writing, is not writing has been a big deal. It's mentioned multiple times in writing about writing, but the thing is those pieces are about 5 years old, and as of today I think really no one's questioning if texting is writing, because it definitely is. Texting is a system. You type something and you send it electronically. Now a single person could use texting and write something that may not qualify as writing, but to say texting as a whole can't be writing is just ridiculous. And just to mention text lingo and how it's going to destroy the Western civilization as we know it, I think Naomi Barrett summed it up really well when she said, the shape of written language has always been a product of social attitudes and educational values as of technological developments. Instant messaging is unlikely to play a significant role in altering writing standards unless we as parents and educators let it. So she's talking about instant messaging, but is it really that hard to apply that to texting? I mean, that's just how we feel about it. It's just a thing you can write on. So you can say LOL and IDK and things that may not qualify as writing when you text, but guess where else you can also say those things? You could write them on paper. Another thing people like to consider is Facebook and Twitter. It's pretty much the same thing from our group's perspective. You write stuff and you post it. You write sentences and you let other people read them. It's that simple. Now obviously you can play games and look at pictures and stuff on Twitter and Facebook, so maybe not social media as a whole, but the writing aspect of social media, which is the stuff that's really in question with the whole abbreviation and acronyms. We think of that the same way we think of texting. Some people might not write correctly, but as a whole, the whole system isn't flawed, so I don't think you can simplify it down to saying Twitter isn't writing. So I'm sure you're all dying to know what we think of things such as Pinterest and Instagram that uses images alongside words. Well, for us it's pretty simple, and this is where the whole very specific definition of writing will annoy some of you. The words put together in a sentence are writing. The pictures are not.
Excuse me, Drew, if the images contain a meaning, doesn't that mean there's some literary something or other going on inside there?
Well, stereotypical nerd, I guess it all depends on how you look at it. This is a perfect time to reiterate, it's all opinion. Let's all be friends and go to Gumdrop Island, everybody. We feel that something as Instagram is two separate things when it comes to writing. There's the writing part where you type letters to form a thought, and then there's a picture part. And people are under the impression that if an image or photograph has meaning behind it, that makes it writing. We don't fully understand that. The feeling you get from an image in our case is not literary at all. If there's a picture of someone smiling, you can take meaning away from they're happy, but why does that automatically make it writing? That's just our personal opinion. Feel free to disagree. If we go back to the dictionary Cambridge definition, you'll find this. Writing is also articles, poems, books, etc. And writing is also the activity of creating stories, poems, or articles. It says practically the same thing. What's the difference? Well, in the first one, it's treating writing as a noun, and in the second one, it's treating writing as a verb. And that's something that should be addressed because people use it two different ways. You have writing as the noun, words, paragraphs on a page, an essay, or writing as a verb. You have the act of writing. We don't really have anything scholarly to add to that. We just thought it was very interesting. So when we define writing, are we got to talk about it, are we defining what counts as writing in a literal sense, like the actual movement of writing, or are we talking about in a formal sense on a page what writing is? It's all very fascinating, isn't it? Jumping off from writing as a verb, one of the big things that we were questioning was speech to text. A new feature on phones is you speak into your phone and it types it for you. It's interesting because then you have to go into a whole diatribe about if the machine writes it, is it writing? Because the machine doesn't have a purpose to write, it just does it. And a human programmed that machine, but you spoke it, it's your words, but you didn't actually physically write it. And then, if the programmer programmed the machine to do that, does he have exigence to do that? And now we're going to move on to the last little bit of our show here. Let's talk about drawings, art, and specifically emojis. So I've touched on these items a couple times in this video, but they seem to be the most frequent thing people classify as writing that I don't agree with. Again, a lot of this is on the fence. You give me an example of a painting and say, well, what about this? And a lot of times I might be like, I gotta go, actually. Ignoring the mind-bending thought that writing is an art style, but most art is writing aside, because my brain really can't take much more of this, guys. It just fits into our opinion that that kind of definition of writing is way too broad, because what's the point of calling it art if a lot of it is writing? You can give the caveat like, if this art has obvious meaning behind it, then it's writing, and if it's more abstract art, then it's not writing. Where do you draw the line in that? A person can find a lot of meaning in abstract art, and another person might see nothing in a piece that has a very obvious meaning to it. It's way too subjective. In that sense, we all agree that writing should be way more objective than art, which is much more subjective. No matter your upbringing, you can interpret different things from writing, but really much less than a piece of art. And alright, let's talk about emojis really quick. I have never used an emoji, so I am really out of my territory, but it's very similar to what I was saying about a picture of a person smiling doesn't necessarily make that writing. Emojis are art, they're little doodles, and they convey simple emotions, they convey simple ideas, and I'm reiterating myself time and time again here, but people, I don't understand why people are under the impression that writing is the only thing that you can get a message out of. Who decided that art can't have a type of meaning? I couldn't describe the difference to you, it's all too abstract, but it's a definite difference for me, Narada, and Haley. So with that, our spiel ends. This was obviously a very loose way of doing a project, for better or worse. What we were targeting here, may surprise you, is actually younger people, which may surprise you because our definition is very similar to a lot of old definitions. We're not trying to change the definition all too much. We just want to formalize it. So why are we targeting younger people for a relatively, kind of older definition of writing? Well, younger people are going to be the ones who change the definition of writing. Older people are obviously more set in their ways. And people are under the impression that younger people, can only attach themselves to new ideas, which, is obviously false. If it's a good point, it's a good point. Not to sound egotistical, because once again, I must reiterate, it's all opinion. It says so right in the assignment handout. We wanted to make it more loose, as I said, provide our definition, kind of back up why we think that for non-scholarly reasons, just, personal opinions. And we also wanted to make it like a conversation, give you ideas to think about, because that's really what it is. It's your opinion, and you got to think about it, and you got to think about those ideas that are right on the line. I want to give credit where credit's due. Narada and Haley were the ones who put together the topics and kind of formalized everything, and I was just the one who put my dumb face in front of a camera. All right, kids, remember, writing is cool, exigence is rad, and know your audience, because one day it can save your life. I'm out. Peace.